Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. We're chatting with TG Watkins. That means we're going to be focusing on some of the charts, some of the technicals he is watching for markets, and even get into some of the commodities. But TG, first and foremost, with these markets, it's been pretty consistent in terms of at least the S&P and Nasdaq continuing to move higher, recently again hitting new all-time highs, and it just feels like over the last couple months at least, if not for most of this year, the corrections have been relatively shallow and short-lived. Outside of that one correction in April, everything continues to trudge higher, at least in the mega cap stocks. And that's what a lot of people say, is that it's still being very much led by a mega cap rally. TG, what are you seeing in these markets? Is it just blue skies ahead as these markets continue, at least the S&P and Nasdaq, to move higher?
Well, I do think it's been a lot of the mega caps. Nvidia has definitely made an outsized impact on the market. I think that I heard something that the S&P's, 30% of the S&P's gain has been Nvidia alone. So yeah, that's kind of huge. And then as far as right now, I think everybody ran the price up because of their stock split, and that happened today. Yeah, there's some buying today, but I am looking for it to eventually get sold off into with basically the fresh liquidity that's coming into it, because it is pretty much at nosebleed territory and all that stuff. And this last move with the stock split news was straight up. So if anything, it needs to kind of consolidate and it could possibly pull back. And I just don't think that this is a good place to buy Nvidia right here. Not saying anything bad about Nvidia in the longer term, but just right here, right now is not a good place. I would give it some time and see if it can come down. Part of the reason I'm saying that is because if you actually look at the rest of the market, the internals are not doing that great. Today is kind of so-so. Even if you look at breadth, 50-day breadth, 200-day breadth, it's been sideways to down, and it's just a whole lot of blah out there. And really, it's just kind of been Nvidia. So I don't see too many opportunities right now. I know we'll talk about precious metals, but they've pulled back. The mega caps they're up, but I'm just looking at a lot of stuff, and it's like meh. It's just kind of not much going on right now, and I think we need to look at things to do some sort of reset before we can find opportunities to actually get going again.
Well, TG, just to that point, we're kind of back in that environment like you're laying out there, where it's narrow leadership. Everybody's funneled into a handful of large mega cap tech stocks, but most of the stocks in the S&P 500 and most of the stocks in the Russell 2000 are not having the same kind of experience. Do you think some of the Nvidia money, where people have done well, they've made good money, they ring the register and they rotate into some of these other stocks, are we going to see a rotation into some of the unloved market breadth that's been passed over in this rally?
I would like to see that. Yes, that would make reasonable sense. And there is a huge amount of capital that is in Nvidia just because of how big it is and how much it's grown. I think it's the third biggest stock. I mean, behind Microsoft and Apple. And so, yeah, if any money starts coming out of it, I think it's got to go someplace. And that's a lot of money that can come out of it before it really even takes a big dent, just because it is so huge. So, yeah, I mean, on the surface, I would just kind of expect that. We'll see if it actually happens. And it would be great if those institutions or people or whoever's running the money here kind of looks for other opportunities. And honestly, with breadth being down low, that means we are going to find some opportunities. I just think we need to still have a little bit more of a catalyst before that happens, because if there are only 40% of stocks that are over their 50-day SMA, meaning breadth is fairly low, then that means that we actually have a lot of room above us that these stocks can go up and appreciate before getting too overbought. So we are building a system right now where the Nvidia and the indexes are at all-time highs, but the rest of the market's down. So even if the market kind of backs off a little bit or goes sideways, and then maybe breadth kind of goes down a little bit further, that could provide some kindling so that the dry powder can cycle into these lower names and then start the next up move. And maybe it won't be Nvidia that leads the way, and we have these opportunities. So yeah, I'm looking around for that. I mean, we've got that fertile ground, but we're also not triggered ready to go up yet, is how I'm kind of seeing it.
Could there be any seasonality in play here where we are entering summer? It's been already a pretty good year for these markets, and a cooling off period could just be a slowdown in terms of a sideways consolidation.
Yeah, that's possible too. We're also coming up into a presidential election. I've heard that these couple months can be strong, but then people do start taking some chips off the table because they don't know who's going to win next. And you got to really zoom out and think about this. The powers that be, the people of the big money, the institutions, all this stuff, they want to know where is the government going? Because it's follow the money, right? Follow the power, follow the money. And with the administration possibly changing or not changing, that's what they want to know. And so if it does change, they're going to be, okay, what is this new administration about, and where are they going to be changing laws, directing support, doing anything with money? And then the big money wants to start going that direction. I mean, go back all the way to 2020. As soon as we heard that Biden was elected, what took off? Crypto, flying cars, basically, EVs, battery power storage things, solar. I mean, everything. It's like, oh, okay, Democrats are in charge. They're all about green, and even cannabis stocks started taking off because that was the narrative for them. So we'll have to see. Does that continue if Biden wins again, or is it going to change if Trump gets in? And I think if we just, you got to think that's why they're going to be pulling back and they're reducing their exposure, because they want to be able to pivot wherever the next presidential election is going to go.
Well, TG, how much do interest rates play into things like, let's say, the small caps? Because we have a lot of economic pundits on the financial media saying that as long as the cost of capital remains higher, a lot of these smaller companies that don't have revenues yet are punished because they're borrowing loans to produce, whatever their studies are, or tests or trials, or if they're doing tech to develop new platforms, but they're not really generating revenues yet. How are you looking at the interest rate markets, and is that affecting the small cap sector?
Yes, that is a pretty typical thing. A lot of people talk about it, and yes, it does matter in some ways, but also remember the market is forward looking, at least 6 months or so. And if you do look at the TNX, if you look at interest rates, they have been up, but they're also going sideways. They haven't broken out into new highs. And so the market might be able to look at this and say, okay, we're probably not going to go higher. And so we need to start planning that probably the next move for interest rates is down. We don't necessarily know when, but most likely it's going to be down. And we need to start getting ahead of that. So I do think that, yeah, we could be looking at small caps and seeing if there's going to be opportunity for that. Because again, hey, if we do get that rotation out of Nvidia and out of overbought stocks and into these low stocks that have a huge room above them for potential, and if interest rates start coming down, then yeah, that would kind of be the play that I'd be looking for. I mean, I would like to be all over that. That's kind of my thing, and that's what I look for. And as far as something like the IWM, I think it's poised. It's gone through a long, long, long time of where in 2022, basically, it's sold off. And then between 2022 and 2023, it went sideways. And now, really, we are kind of in the upper. We've gotten into a new Darvish box, if you want to call it that. We've been up. I'm looking here, basically, yeah, the start of 2024, the IWM went up, and it's had a couple tries, but it's mostly going sideways. But it's going sideways out of a long-term sideways consolidation. On the big surface, I don't see anything wrong with this, and I see basically that at some point I think it's going to continue to move up. So yeah, I mean, it's just a question of when. That's the thing, timing. But I do think that the IWM looks like it's got a lot of potential to move up.
Any other sectors, any other charts that you see as benefiting from flat interest rates, if not maybe turning back over?
I'm wondering a little bit about the EV sector. It has gotten so beat up, and it's kind of nobody loves it anymore, and how expensive and this and that. I'm just wondering if there might be a little bit of a resurgence, because the stock market's a little perverse like that. The more that it's hated and just forgotten about, the more likely it's actually going to come back. And so I'm just going to throw that one out there at some point and think maybe that's going to do something. And then, of course, cannabis. I'm very curious to see if cannabis is ever going to come back. It's had a few spurts kind of with the Kamala Harris and Fat Joe getting together and talking about basically redoing the scheduling of it. And it's had several kind of fake outs. And this last one kind of looked like the most legitimate, but it still can't quite hold it. But it is trying to move up on the longer term. So I think that, again, there's possibility. I just think there's possibility, okay? But it's going to take a while, and we're going to have to see what happens. So don't take your eyes off of it, and we'll see if something happens, but it's not quite ready yet.
All right, appreciate those updates. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens on the federal level if they change the legality, and that could be a boon for business in the U.S. Let's shift over to the commodities, though. Looking at the metals, gold, silver, copper, they're all kind of rotating down, maybe for different reasons. When we talked last, it was kind of the peak of that cycle, and you had pointed out some of these metals may pull back, so good call, TG. But where are you looking for support? Is this move over? Is it just taking a rest? How are you looking at the metals?
It would be hard to say that this move is over. I mean, gold has broken out of about a 2-year base, like a an upper base, and it broke out in a big way. So I don't want to say that, oh, this is it and it's going to roll over now. I would more rather say that it had a really big move. It went straight up for a few months and it just got too overbought and extended, and now it's just pulling in. So it's either going to go sideways, sideways to down, it's going to flag of some sort, and then we'll have to just wait and watch when the next move to the upside will be. That's what I would want to lean towards. Hey, if I'm wrong, okay, it keeps going down, fine. But something like this, I wouldn't be betting against it. I would just be patiently waiting until the next something to the upside.
What about something like the GDX chart then? The gold stocks also had a breakout, not to the same degree as gold, but they also rolled over. But hey, they're higher than they have been for at least the last year broadly, or the year and a half. What do you see in the GDX chart?
Kind of the same thing. I mean, I've been one to trade GDX a lot in the past, but it's been really tough. Maybe if gold and silver and the miners are actually going to start trending, then okay, maybe it's going to be a little bit easier to trade. But same thing, it finally broke out, had a great move, and it just got too overbought. I mean, I'm looking at GDX right now. There is a really, really long-term downtrending trend line that if you go from the peak, which was August of 2020, and you just kind of draw a diagonal line to the down right to about $30, you can see we've broken out. And that looks great. But at some point, you're going to have to come back, kind of retest some stuff, find some support. And I think that's what we're doing right now. It's just the normal, typical process.
Well, TG, when we were talking off mic, we had asked about where some of the support levels could come in, maybe from a moving average standpoint. And you pointed out that copper is already below its 50-day moving average and that gold just dipped below it. It's possible that there would be different levels of support down below on the weekly chart. Maybe break down where you think support could come in using the moving averages.
Yeah, and in fact, so you guys first started talking about silver with me, and without me actually looking at the rest of the charts, I said, I have a feeling that silver's probably going to need to get below the daily 50 this time. You can see that the last move up actually bounced nicely off of the daily 50, but given what's happened this time, I'm like, I think it's going to have to go lower. And then we looked at gold, and I was like, oh, look, hey, gold is already below the daily 50. Then we looked at FCX. And FCX is already below the daily 50. Then on mic here, we just looked at GDX, and GDX is below the daily 50. So I would say that that pretty much confirms what I was thinking, and that silver is most likely going to just dip below its daily 50. But again, that may not be bad. It doesn't mean that dipping below the daily 50 means it's going to roll over and die and go down. It just means it can go sideways, because as it goes sideways and those moving averages catch up to it, that means, sideways, and the moving average goes up. Well, at some point, that means price goes below the 50. And so if the 50 is not going to be something that we can really key off of right now, then you kind of back up and continue looking up the time frames, and you say, okay, well, what's next? And without saying that this is a for sure thing or anything, I would just say, hey, probably check out the weekly 21, see if that's going to be the next thing, because that would be the next item in my line of command.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, when you have moving averages sloping up this sharply, that is a good sign, and they can play catch up simply by price moving sideways. I was going to ask you about some of those longer term charts, because look at how far away those prices are from those moving averages, but kind of broke that one down. So TG, thanks for your time. Always interesting hearing what sectors, what areas you see as opportunities, and how you're viewing the broader markets. We'll post a link to the Profit Pilot website below this interview. That's where everyone can keep up to date with you and learn more about the technicals that you trade off of. TG, thanks as always for your time, man. Great chatting with you.
Of course.